The idea of conflict would paralyze me. I was just so focused on wanting to make sure everyone around me was happy that I didn't realize that I was losing myself. That is a complete lack of self-worth.
We avoid conflict. It goes back to our innate nature. It's time for us to rise beyond whatever that innate part of us is. Conflict doesn't have to be a breakdown in relationships.
Can mean a disagreement. And disagreement can still mean that there's love and care and connection. Growth happens when friction occurs. In every now moment, we have the unique opportunity to redefine who we are through the actions that we choose. You can choose to love yourself. I know it's possible. It can be changed.
I want to start our time together straight out of the gate with one of the greatest philosophers of our generation, one of the greatest minds and greatest hearts of our time, Ted Lasso. Because we are diving into the fact that conflict doesn't have to be a breakdown in relationships. And I think he really, really said it incredibly well with a quote that you and I really enjoy. Because we talk a lot in quotes from shows or movies or other such things. You want to share the quote?
I think it's all you. You're on the roll.
Awesome. So it is, I don't have to agree with you to show you that I care about you. And it's so true because so often we feel like, all I need you to do is be on my side. Just side with me. If you love me, take my side. As though suddenly you're not allowed to have your own point of view.
Yeah, that's very unconditional, huh?
Yeah. And there are so many things in the show Ted Lasso. We watch it again and again and again. And another member of our team, the amazing Dr. Rosie Kuhn, when she was out here, even staying with us once, we spent the time here watching Ted Lasso again because there is so much in there that is so beneficial. Mm-hmm. Conflict and navigating conflict and coming through it stronger and better, not just individually, but as a partnership or as a team. As a cohesive team is a huge part of what you learn in that show, what is shown throughout that. And that's why I think it's really great when we're talking about how conflict does not have to break down your connection, but it can actually build it up in love. That show is a great reflection of that if you take the nuggets out of it and it entertains you at the same time.
Right. I mean, there were so many different types of relationships in that show. And if you really watch Ted Lasso specifically, but actually as I'm thinking about it right now, I can't really think of an all-out, shouting fight throughout the entire show. There were disagreements. There was definitely conflict. But for most of the time, you could tell that even there were some duplicitous things that were going on and things that were under the radar and attempting to hurt people on purpose. As the seasons went on, a lot of that shifted. And for the first time, I think it did a really good job of showing that you can have a show that's about positivity, that doesn't have to be so, deep in drama and overcomplication, that it can be simple and clean and fun and positive. And it can show that there is depth flowing through conflict in a more positive, loving capacity.
100%. Even to the point where at the end of the show, when they wanted, spoiler alerts, if you have not seen the show and you would like to watch the show, this might not be the podcast for you.
Earmuffs.
So either earmuffs or, come back after you've seen the show. But even at the summary of the show, when he's having a book written about him, right? and they want to call it the Lasso way. And he says, it was never about me.
Mm.
That was so important because there's so much conflict that could occur with the ego just in that. Of course, the human ego is going to want to say, yes, I came in and I did all of these great things.
Mhm.
But being a great philosopher, the story was written as such. In many ways, he had the ability to have that inner dialogue, to not let his inner critic and his ego come together and say, but it is about you. It wasn't about everyone else. If you weren't here, none of this would have happened. So, of course, it's the Lasso way. Let it go. Let this be about you. He's like, no, it wasn't about me. It was about us, all of us playing our part, doing our thing, and coming together as a team.
Yeah, even the little nuggets that selfies are called ussies in
Ussies.
the show. Just those little details that show a whole different perspective on that. Absolutely. Because yeah, you're right. And of course, could have been all about him, but maybe it's also because everyone else chose it too. And none of it would have happened. Like just because he chose it doesn't mean everyone else should have, or would have, or he could choose, and then everyone else could just say no. And then what impact does he have?
Yes.
So it is a co-creation to that experience, which is why I love that it finished in that way, because it was really showing that was his true heart. When you have a deep heart connection and you understand through that connection what oneness is, when you help yourself, you're helping others, and when you help others, you're helping yourself. They're completely intertwined. And that was a beautiful representation of that.
Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books. And the first quote, right? Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I don't care about you.
Mhm.
And he was able to show up and show that over and over and over again, that it's okay not to agree because it takes both of you to a new level. And that's where healthy conflict actually can propel everyone forward. But we avoid it for some reason. We avoid conflict. And we can say it goes back to our innate nature. When we were first coming into being, to have conflict could actually cost you your life. It could get you thrown out of your tribe. It could get you cast out of the cave. It could cost you your life. So, not creating conflict was actually a life saving tactic. I get that. But we're kind of past that at this point. So it's time for us to begin to rise beyond whatever that innate part of us is. If we desire to evolve in our relationships, evolve in ourselves, and really move forward as a human, collected, and connected organism, if we want to put it in that way, right? Because we're not going to get thrown out of, I mean, if you will get thrown out of your house, then be aware of that. But overall, we're not going to get thrown out of a relationship if we have our own perspective over something very small.
If you do, then that's maybe not the right relationship. That might really help put in perspective, as a barometer. in terms of a relationship. To me, that would be a very one-sided relationship. That's not even a relationship. That's just an experience.
Maybe you feel like it would, but have you really
Mm,
done it to know?
right.
Right? Maybe that's just something within you that has that sense that it would. But have you talked to those you are connected to understand if it would? Maybe you're carrying that forward from another relationship or from connections with family or others, organizations you've been part of.
Yeah.
And so you've received that message from another source and you're carrying it forward thinking that that's how it is in this connection as well. But maybe it's not.
Mm,
So we always have to be willing to be aware in self and in the connection to know. But we shy away from conflict. So we don't even attempt because we don't desire the conflict. And I know that we started that way,
mhm.
especially in relationships. That awareness begins to help us understand. And so sharing where we started, if you're willing to do that,
Absolutely.
I think that's helpful because I noticed if ever we didn't agree, you immediately thought we were breaking up or our friendship. Let's go back to the very beginning. If we didn't agree, you thought our friendship was over.
Mhm,
So you constantly attempted to align everything with how I was doing things.
mhm,
And I always was like, wait a second. There's no possible way that this guy likes every single thing I like.
mhm.
He has to have some variation because he's not a mirror image of me. So, what is going on here? And then when we had that moment where you were like, I'm not sure if I enjoy this. And I was like, oh, really? Because you liked it, a month and a half ago. And then you were like, oh,
Mhm,
and you were really nervous to tell me.
mhm.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just immature me, being so adverse to conflict because I so desperately wanted to be liked by everyone that the idea of conflict, um, would paralyze me. So that is just a complete lack of self-worth right there in action. And so, yeah, I was just so focused on wanting to make sure everyone around me was happy, and that, and then I didn't want to cause a problem. And it was just because it was just easier. And then I was honestly probably too afraid to have any kind of deep conversation, and go beyond surface level. And then on top of that, I don't think I had taken the time to actually know what I liked. I was so busy focusing on what other people liked and wanting to just make them happy that I was like, oh, if they like it, I like it. That's fine. I just didn't need to, I thought it made me a good friend. I didn't realize that it completely took away my personality and kind of through my own actions robbed me of my own way of being.
And then from my side, it made it very hard for me to know how to interact with you.
Sure.
So that created a different kind of conflict. But I desired to know you, to understand who you were and what you liked. And when you didn't know what you liked, then the different level of conflict then became, well, if he doesn't know what he likes, then how can I connect? And we share the things that we similarly like and what is different, I can learn from him in. But that even gave us an opportunity for growth.
Mhm.
The moment you were vulnerable enough with me to say, I don't know what I like and what I don't like because I haven't explored that part of myself. And then you allowed me to say, okay, then let's figure it out. We got to go on that journey together. And that was beautiful. But the conflict had to happen first. Then there was a fear that we hit where as you were learning what you liked and you didn't like, and there was any kind of conflict and, well, you liked this, but I didn't like that, you were afraid I was going to leave
Mhm.
because it didn't exactly match. So, oh my gosh, she's going to leave me. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I had a lot of issues. let's,
I think we
let's just be
all
real
do.
on that one.
No, we all
No.
do. That's
So
the beauty of it. It's
yeah,
not issues.
I
It's
don't.
just like gold digging,
I'm
right?
making a
Like
joke.
digging it out.
I think gold digging means something else. So I wasn't.
See, I have an
wasn't
issue. I don't know the right words.
yeah, I mean that was abandonment issues because I was again stemming back from wanting to be liked.
Mhm.
Growing up as an only child, I think that kind of played a part in it. And so, you know, I kind of grew up around family and friends that had family, and I'd see them like treat each other terribly, and then they always like make up or just like, yeah, we still we fight, but we still love each other. It's like, well,
It's pretty common.
I don't have that. Like, I don't have anyone to do like, so it wasn't to me, it was like this view, it's not baked in. I have them with my parents, but I didn't really want to fight my parents. Like that wasn't, it's just a different, parent-child relationship is different than sibling in that sense. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like it was kind of like a life or death in that sense. Right. Because it was like, if I don't make friends, then I am just at home by myself. And so it did feel like a bigger issue. And so, yeah, I wanted to be liked. I wanted to have friends. It came from a place of, yeah, just a simple place of wanting to be liked. That abandonment struggle was definitely one of them, and it bled into my different types of relationships, and to the point where it's like I just would start cutting things off before they even really started, just because I was so afraid of um, being left, or of someone walking away, that I would just stop it before it even got to that point. So yeah,
Yeah.
fun stuff.
And again, I feel like so many of us have those things.
Yeah, in different ways. They manifest in different ways for each and every one of us. I know we were just having this conversation a little bit ago about earlier this week, about how it's hard to feel alone. But what's even harder is when you're around a lot of people and still feel alone.
Yeah.
That was Robin Williams, and shared that. And that was always that's a tough one to hear. And it's an even tougher one to experience.
Mhm.
And then that was kind of a fear to me too. Um, and so I feel like a lot of us experience something like that in some way, and it manifests differently. And for me, it came through sacrificing my identity, which is ironic because I was so afraid of losing others that I didn't realize that I was losing myself.
You're avoiding
And
conflict
mhm.
so deeply. The true conflict started within you.
And by losing myself, I then was losing other people.
Mhm.
And so I was creating I was perpetuating my own fear in thinking it was happening outside of me versus it happening inside of me the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in truth, you did attempt
Oh
to
yeah.
push me away.
Yeah. I did.
Not something we talk about a lot, but you
No, because I can't imagine. I love you. Yeah. No, I don't want that at all. But yeah, it was just my own inability to sit with any version of me at that time was. I was like, if I can't even love myself, let alone like myself, how could someone else?
Thankfully, when we hit that conflict point, and I was like, okay, if you really don't want me here, I'm happy to give you your space. You were like, what?
Mhm.
And then it didn't align that way. And our story has been written since.
Mhm.
But that is what conflict can do. And to me, that is also the story, right?
Mhm.
Where if we embrace the conflict, we're open to it and we hold the love through it, and we're not afraid of talking through it, connecting through it. Even when you did have that moment where your actions and even your words were like, okay, nope, nope, I'm leaving you before you have the chance to leave me. And I told you I wasn't going to leave you, friend or otherwise. I was there. But if you don't want me, it's okay. Then I will leave. It gave you that opportunity to know I really and truly wasn't going anywhere,
Mhm.
but I was going to leave if you didn't want me. It was almost like that moment for you to realize that you were the one leaving, not me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, when you say you were leaving, it was had nothing to do with you leaving. It was actually you were there the whole time, and it was my choice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing how oftentimes we are the creator of our own biggest problems, and things that we think are outside of ourselves are actually happening within. I feel that if people really took the time to understand that, one, it would probably lower a ton of the conflict.
Mhm.
But two, I think it would also show a completely different way on how conflict can be managed and navigated. I only thought, mainly because of movies, that conflict had to be adversarial.
Mhm.
Conflict had to be a fight. It had to be a big blow up. It had to be, a dramatic, thing, and then that causes, you know, all these, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, all these massive things that happen, but I guess a lot of things in a movie have to occur to create ups and downs in a two
Exactly. You
in an
wouldn't
hour to
watch
an hour and a
it if
half,
it,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
um
It wouldn't be
and
interesting.
that's kind of where, if it was just monotone for like a 90 minutes, it's like, is that
Yeah.
really, so I get, like, obviously I didn't get that, but I do now.
Right.
um and just, obviously we talked about in the last episode of separating what occurs in a movie versus what's occurring in real life. That's a very, very different thing. We don't need to overcomplicate, but we can learn. And so, that's that for me, like knowing that conflict could occur in a completely different way than I'd ever been shown. Conflict doesn't have to mean a big blow up. It can mean a disagreement. And
Yes.
disagreement can still mean that there's love and care and connection in that. And that doesn't, that's actually a beautiful thing. When you disagree, you know growth happens when friction occurs,
Mhm.
and that's something that I didn't quite realize as well. And so when there is a loving friction, then that expands both people or multiple people, however the situation unfolds. That, learning is always happening. It's just simply our awareness that is stifling its ability to redirect our lives. And that redirection can be usually positive if we allow it.
I always think about how I learned to start fires in like my camping days. It has to be that friction. But once you get that spark, fire ignites and it's phenomenal,
Yeah, and I just wanted to
right?
use a lighter because I didn't want conflict.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I want to like really ignite, right? I want to burn bright. And the only way I'm going to do that is by embracing that. But even with a lighter, to go back to your comment, you have to have that friction. No matter what, you don't get that spark without that
Mm,
friction.
yeah.
As humans, we're going to have that friction. How you handle that friction is going to determine how your fire burns.
Mhm.
And that's what I really feel Ted Lasso is directing us toward, even in the show, but in that comment. I can attack you and I can burn the crap out of you. if we're having a conflict. Or I can say, I may not agree with with your position, but I can learn from it and I can use it to fuel myself and my own knowledge and my own expansion
Yeah.
as a being, as a person, even with what we were going through and where you were when you were saying, look, nope, I don't feel like we're headed. This isn't fitting for me. And at the time, we were really only friends, kind of discovering where we were going with romantic
Mhm.
approach because you thought that you weren't sure if I really loved you or I didn't love. Like the whole thing was a question mark over your head.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I know how I feel about you. You clearly don't know how I feel about you. I've done everything I can do to show you how I feel about you. I can't change how you're feeling, but I can continue to love you from where I am. And I can honor what you're clearly showing me.
Mhm.
Now, I could have gotten mad and like just attacked you,
Mhm.
but by choosing to soak it in and hold my space and hold my love and let my fire burn and say, what is the most loving thing I can do in this moment? How can I light my fire even bigger with whatever is happening? Yes, it hurts. It hurts like crap. Are you kidding? I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. But I can get up and I can walk to the door and give him the space that he's clearly asking for.
Mhm.
And that's what I chose to do. You didn't even let me make it to the door. You didn't even let me make it to the door before that decision switched for you.
Just the communication of that. There's a difference between, I'm leaving you, and then you walked out the door and then there wasn't like you heard me all the way through. You still shared that you loved me and nothing that you did changed. And so I think that was to me the differentiation. That was the realization that conflict doesn't have to mean variability.
Yeah.
You can still be steadfast and still have conflict.
Yes.
You can still have a depth of soul and character. And I mean, there's conflict constantly within all of us as we're seeking to understand who we are in this experience of being human. Because we like to think ourselves as one thing, and when other things occur, it's like, oh, I guess I didn't show up that way today. It's like,
I meant to.
yeah.
It just didn't happen.
And then there are times where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was within me. Like
Yeah.
I just,
Nailed
yeah.
it.
So exactly, exactly. So we surprise ourselves in both ways, and so it's like if we already knew who we are and how we're going to show up, then why are we here? I mean, like there would just to me there would be really there really wouldn't be a point for this specific experience of life.
Yes.
And so in this physical space where things are dense and it feels heavy, when we can recognize that conflict can bring forward lightness, then that's something that we can actually gravitate toward. And we can recognize the power that it has. It can shed light on the darkness that the conflict is attempting to put, a cover over.
And when we think about it, we can either let our inner critic.
Mhm.
That's why, again, when we were talking about the book and when I chose to like focus there first, it's because the inner critic is so powerful in our minds and in our beingness, and it can infiltrate in a second
Yes.
and be the one that takes that spark of conflict and turn it into a weapon and fire it at someone else instead of allow your inner champion to use it in a way that is a superpower and fuels your own expansion,
Yeah.
as I described, right? It is a conscious, concerted effort to say, who's driving this right now?
Yeah.
And the more that we can have something like a dialogue of who's in charge right now, am I allowing my inner critic to create a weapon and create this conflict to be a war between me and someone else? Or am I going to be the one allowing my inner champion to rise and use this to my advantage and grow as a person?
Mm.
What's going to happen right now? It's my narrative, it's my story. How am I writing it?
Maybe that goes along with, Ted Lasso's other favorite quote, be a goldfish, right?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I say that to myself all the time when things happen. Be a goldfish. Be
Be a
a goldfish.
goldfish. Yeah. When we hold on to things, it can really transform the narrative into a way that feels like we no longer have direction over the situation because it feels like it's so daunting. It's that continual feeling of like when you hold a cup of water, the weight of the water never changes, but the longer you hold it, the more it feels like you're getting weighed down.
Yeah.
It's because when you hold on to something, it feels so heavy. And I feel like a lot of us do that in so many ways. We're holding on to things from when we were young kids and we might not even be consciously aware of it. And that's creating a feeling of heaviness in our bodies, in our physical forms, in our energetic forms, and body, mind, emotion, and spirit, all levels of self. And so when we say be a goldfish, it's not an excuse to just be able to do something like be a dick and then be like, oh, what did I do? It's not like, it's not like,
I've already forgotten about
yeah.
that.
So it's not from that standpoint, but it's from a standpoint of be present, that in every now moment, we have the unique opportunity to redefine who we are through the actions that we choose.
Yeah.
What a brilliant, divine opportunity we have with every present moment,
Yeah.
that we can choose to change who we are to the very best of our ability and reach a level of ourselves we never thought possible. We get that choice every moment. That's wild.
Yeah. Talk about a superpower.
That is the ultimate superpower. And what a divine gift. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
what a gift.
Yeah.
And so if we don't like the way our life is moving, or we don't like the choices that we're making, or we don't like who we are, we don't even love who we are, like, trust me, I know it's possible. It can be changed because you can choose to love yourself in that moment. And the more you make that choice, then the grander that it just snowballs. And it's unbelievable what it can do. And through that love, then it can snowball into how you show up for those around you. And so when you do have things like conflict, then you can breathe that love into that conflict, and you recognize that it is so much more than it's not a fight.
Mhm.
It's not it's not even a negative. It's something that can propel you forward.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
And if what we're talking about right now really resonates with you, click the link below and sign up for our free 5-day email course centered around silencing your inner critic. Just quick practical tips to really kind of dive you in to what it really means to silence your inner critic. You can walk away 5 days from now feeling that lightness, that airiness, feeling what it feels to actually move forward and not feel stuck. Because oftentimes that inner critic can come in, just make us feel stuck and make us feel like we aren't worthy. And that's exactly what this course is designed to do, is to give you a simple pathway to move forward, to get you out of feeling unstuck, to start to feel that worth, that love, that connection that is deep, deep within you, and allow you to embody it at every level of who you are. And so I challenge you to go ahead and sign up. It's completely free. Go explore, learn about yourself, and really take what you're doing to the next level through love. Also, feel free to check out more videos right here on the Heart Leader podcast.